In this video, we're going to talk about how you can play your favorite games like Daytona USA, Crazy Taxi, and whatever your favorite game is, comment down below. I'd love to hear about that. But how can you play these games on an Arcade1up cabinet? Now, these are games that are not yet released by Arcade1up and Sega, but maybe we'll have the ability to play them ourselves. Now, you've probably seen people use emulation like a Raspberry Pi or a PC, but in this video, we're going to be talking about how you can play these games without any complicated wiring. Everything in this video is something you can simply purchase and put together on your Arcade1up. If you've assembled your Arcade1up, then you can do these mods. Now, let's jump right in. Now, the first thing you're probably asking is, what is the piece of hardware that we're going to be using to drive that video game? Well, it's actually an original Dreamcast. Now, I'm going to step you through everything you need to be able to do to connect your Dreamcast to an Arcade1up cabinet. Now, you probably haven't seen all these different details, so check this out. If you're not interested in playing Sega Dreamcast, you're probably interested in how it's being connected, because this mod is versatile. You can use this mod and interchange it with different parts. And that's what I love about this mod, is because you can buy all this equipment and then play these video games in your living room on your television, but you can also reuse a lot of this equipment to play it on your Arcade1up cabinet. And in fact, you can swap out some of the parts to be able to play different games on your Arcade1up cabinet. So it's highly, highly versatile. So first thing, we're going to talk about the Dreamcast. When I purchased a Dreamcast, I got it from eBay, and it was already modded with an optical drive emulator. This is called the Dreamcast GDEMU. This is going to allow you to play Dreamcast backup games on your Sega Dreamcast with just an SD card. Now, this is a fantastic way to do it, and it works really well with an Arcade1up cabinet, because when you start it up, you'll be able to see a game selection of which game you want to play. You pick it, and you can start playing. But I'm sure you've got so many other questions, like how are you going to be able to connect the Sega Dreamcast to the Arcade1up monitor? Well, let me introduce you to a really cool mod. It's one purchase that you need to make, and it's going to solve a lot of your problems. So one of the problems is, how do you get HDMI out, or I should say HDMI in, to your Arcade1up cabinet? Now, this control panel from Intech Gaming does a lot more than what the title says. It says you can connect it to a Nintendo Switch, but it also comes with the parts necessary to just give you HDMI in. And the control panel is wireless, so that's the key thing about it. The reason why it can connect to a Nintendo Switch is because it does so wirelessly. But this control panel is compatible with other wireless adapters. So at that point, the only problem that you need to solve is, how do you get HDMI out from your Sega Dreamcast to go to your television in your living room, or even to the Arcade1up itself? So with this mod, I tested two HDMI adapters that will connect to either your television or to the Arcade1up using the adapter that comes with that control panel. So the first one we're going to take a look at is the HDMI adapter from Level Hike. Now, this thing has no bells and whistles, but it's compatible with both the Dreamcast connected to your television or to the adapter that comes with a control panel for your Arcade1up. So either way, it does work. And this is good because Dreamcast has a complicated resolution and the Arcade1up has a complicated resolution. And it's good that we found a solution, one that will connect the original hardware to an Arcade1up. But don't expect to have the highest level of performance when it comes to lag or anything like that, because this is priced at only about $20. And typically things of that nature don't have that perfect lag-free solution. But when I was playing the games, it was very playable. It's very functional. Now, the second HDMI adapter that I tested is one that I've been using for a couple years now. It's called the Acura by Behar Bros. Now, this comes recommended by RetroRGB.com, and I'll tell you a feature that's on it that I really appreciate, that I've used in my living room, and that it has this scanline generator. So I really wanted to test if I could connect the Sega Dreamcast to the Arcade1up using the Acura. Could I take advantage of the scanline generator? And I can tell you, it totally works, and it actually looks really awesome. It's actually generating the scanlines in that hardware before it goes out to the HDMI, and the performance of it is really good. Now, you're going to pay a little bit extra for this feature, but keep in mind, this is not a device that you would buy that would only work on your Arcade1up cabinet. You can plug it into your television. I'm recommending with this mod is not trying to make a permanent Sega Dreamcast Arcade1up, but when you buy these adapters, you buy the Intech Gaming control panel, you could, for a temporary period of time, play games from your Nintendo Switch. And then maybe later you can play games on that classic mini consoles because you could buy that adapter, but also you could do it with your Dreamcast. For me, what I'm doing is right next to the cabinet, I have a little table where I can put those consoles. So that way I'm not installing the consoles or the Dreamcast directly into the back of the Arcade1up. That would kind of make it more of a permanent solution. But if that's something that you want to do, there's nothing for me to stop you. But I like the idea of being able to swap parts out. Now, maybe that's partly because I make content on YouTube and I'm reusing the Final Fight to showcase all these different mods out there. And that's my hobby and that's what I'm excited to do. So I like the non-permanent solution, but I can imagine that actually being really good to someone who's constantly playing these games on the Arcade1up cabinet. And the Dreamcast is definitely something that I've been playing for the last couple of weeks, and out of all of them that I've done the mod, this is the one that's really exciting me because the Sega Dreamcast is not a console that I played a lot when I was a kid, and there's this vast library of games that I haven't got into, and every single time I turn it on and play another game, I discover another gem, and they play really well on the Arcade1up because a lot of the games that I've been playing are from like the actual Atomic Wave that have been modified to be able to play on the Dreamcast. So it's actually arcade games running on the Dreamcast hardware. And so the possibility of unlocking the power of the Sega Dreamcast onto your Arcade1up is great. And you don't have to worry about the emulation itself, right? You've thrown emulation out the window. You're not worrying about, will this PC be powerful enough to do the Dreamcast? And is the emulator for this Dreamcast good enough? You're using original hardware. So all you have to do is worry about the button wiring and the HDMI out and get that to your preference, and you're good to go. And you're off to the races playing those games. Now, when it comes to wirelessly syncing the control panel to the Sega Dreamcast wireless adapter, it's really easy. All you got to do is just plug it in, and you'll see the sync light blinking. You don't have to press the button on the adapter itself. Go to the control panel, press that second button. You'll see it start doing like a Knight Rider back and forth, and then it locks right in. The mistake that I've made is thinking that you gotta press the sync button on the adapter and then press or like hold it down, but that's not how it works. Just you'll see it flash at a normal rate right when you plug it in, and then you just hit the control panel button. You'll see it Knight Rider back and forth with the green light, and it locks right in. Now, you'll probably want to pick up 2 of these adapters. If you want to play 2 players, you'll have to sync them one at a time. And then when I've turned it back on, it'll either be synced right away, or you just tap that button and it'll sync right away after you press a button. So no big deal on that. And I did find one incompatibility issue with it. I'm going to use this Retro Fighter's control panel to demonstrate it. So the actual Arcade1up control panel by Intech Gaming, it wirelessly moves the joystick. It's the analog control. So when you move the joystick on the Arcade1up cabinet, it's going to simulate like you're moving the analog stick, right? But what I found is it doesn't appear to be simulating the D-pad. So if you're playing a game that only works with the D-pad, it doesn't seem to work. So Gunbird 2 is a game that I was really hoping that I could play on the Arcade1up cabinet through the Sega Dreamcast, but that game, the character is just stationary. All the other buttons work, but when you try to move with the joystick, the character just doesn't move. But I started playing all these other games, and you can play with both the analog stick and the D-pad. Either one works on a lot of the games that I was testing. And if it's the case where the D-pad is not required to play the game, the compatibility seems to be just fine. Now, I don't have a big list of games from the Dreamcast era that only work with the D-pad. I was doing some research on it, and I couldn't really find a good list of games that were like D-pad only, so I don't really know. And I want to recommend, if you're going to play the Sega Dreamcast on your television, The Retro Fighters from CastleMania Games is a fantastic controller as well. This is what I play a lot of the Sega Dreamcast games on when I have it connected to my television instead of my Arcade1up. And it's a more modern controller, and it feels pretty good. And it's the only one that I own that is a Dreamcast. I mean, I have a Dreamcast controller, the original one, but this is what I play more often. I haven't played with other controllers, but if you know of a better Dreamcast controller, comment down below because I'd love to play with it. But so far, this is the best controller that I've played. It doesn't feel perfect when I hold it in my hand when it comes to like the quality of the case and the buttons, but it is a very comfortable shape, and it's a little bit more comfortable than the original Sega Dreamcast. But so I definitely wanted to spotlight that. If you're getting into buying all of these Dreamcast things, I wanted to make sure you knew about all the different options. And let me know what you think about this video in the comment section below, and we'll see you guys in the next video.